Hi guys, my name is Sinethemba Ndlovu, and I'm going to be sharing with you my the poetry that I've been working on recently. So the first poem that I'm going to be doing, I titled it "I See You." It's about a guy who took so long to tell his crush how he really feels about her, because to him it was an excuse because they were just friends, but that's all it is, an excuse. So here it is. I see you. Quiet and distant, I see you. Awful and awkward, I see you. Battling and losing, but you're trying to confuse me, I see you. Being busy and acting dizzy, trying by all means to avoid confrontation while drawing attention, I don't get you. You lower me and you push me, I don't get you. I guess you're a magnet, because I tried being like you and you pushed me away. No, wait, I guess you're gasoline, because I tried being like you and finally you embraced me. But what was the point? Because all we had was potential, no action, no motion, let alone fiction or affection. With you, it's easy to confuse fantasy with reality. But uncertainty remains the catalyst that stimulates this ridiculous cycle called the friend zone. Like parallel lines, we are the perfect match that was never meant to cross paths. Who's the fool between me and you? You gave me clue after clue, but I was still waiting for a cue. It's way after dark, but I'm still waiting for a sign. So, the second one that I'm going to be doing, I titled it Chronicles of a Teenage Snob. It talks about a young boy who never really felt the affection of his father. All he got from his father was money and checks and credit cards. So, these are his thoughts. It's an hour before midnight, and I'm sitting in the dark, waiting, preparing to fail again. Tonight is a very peaceful night. The rain clouds cover the stars, making sure that the twinkle of the beautiful summer's night is no more. The chilling wind sings with the trees, and the gust knocks the dead leaves to the floor, and the fireflies give life to my father's garden. Alone with my music and my thoughts, I am ambushed by ideas of filling the veranda with deep blue smoke of my father's cigarettes, and extinguish myself with his profound London dry gin, and hang myself to dry in his armchair while thinking about my failures, still sitting from the front porch. So I did it. I stole, I smoked, I drank, and I watched. The smoke coming out of my nostrils, my lungs heavy from the fire I was consuming, heavy from the heartache that led me to do this, heavy from my failures that people found amusing, heavy from my father's comments that left me paralyzed, heavy from my father's words that left me immobilized, heavy from my father's secret prayers for a better son, heavy from the fact that I'm not my father's son, and heavy from my mind that never convinced me otherwise. I take a sip, and I feel my chest burning, and almost immediately I'm dreaming, imagining where I'd be if father told me he's proud of me, proud of my efforts. If only father told me he loves me, I'd be in my room calculating algebra instead of smoking marijuana. I'd be drinking coffee to keep me awake instead of dry gin to snap me out of my misery. I'd be happy instead of trying. But after 3 minutes of dreaming, I'm choked awake by thirst of toxic fumes in my body. I take my final blunt and I pass out. But this time I didn't dream about my father's love. It was a nightmare. And one way I know this was because father wasn't there. Maybe that was God's way of saying that I'm back to reality. So the next poem I titled My Second Cigarette. I couldn't finish it. The hate, grief, and regret, it was all too much. And the smoke wasn't enough. Because I was promised. I was promised that inhaling the smoke would levitate you and you would meditate on what doesn't kill you since nothing ever seems to bring life in you. But I guess it was all a bluff because no matter how hard I puffed the toxic fumes, my conscience would exhume the hatchet of sins I buried in my heart and huff them out of my mouth and nostrils. And as I reminisce about the days when my only worries were wearing the correct pair of shoes to church, my chest gasps for air and my thoughts hatch new depressions for me to feast on tomorrow. I inhaled the smoke. I inhaled the smoke so that it could scrub the sin from my heart and carry it through my nostrils to the outside, but the The smoke reminded me that no matter how much I consume it, no matter how much I pull and keep it inside of me for minutes on end, my head will get lighter, but my chest will get heavier. And the heavier it gets, the harder it is to escape. I'm a 17-year-old boy who's afraid of failure. I'm a 17-year-old boy on the verge of giving up. This is my second cigarette in 17 years, and this is my last cigarette I will ever yearn. So the next poem is called I Forgive Myself. It talks about a boy who was playing girls because to him it was sort of an idea that he'd be cool as other kids. He was doing it for recognition, but he realized that he was being stupid. So these are his thoughts. I forgive myself. I forgive myself for letting her keep on trying even though deep inside she was dying. I forgive myself for saying I love her. I forgive myself for killing her. I forgive myself for asking her out only to shoot her down. I forgive myself for choking her with expensive perfume only to make her assume that I'm in love with her. I forgive myself for showering her with gifts because I know she'd give me tits and sex in the shower as an equalizer. I forgive myself for being a dog and saying boys will be boys. I forgive myself for making her think what kind of a great guy I was and how like a vase I was gonna hold her together and never let her go. It was all a hoax. I would boast about her to the guys, but leave her with my ghost whenever her eyes are filled with tears and heavy sighs because I never really loved her. To me, she was just a means of entrance to the VIP area of the socially acceptable. She loved me. But I loved what the guys would say when they see me sneaking her out of my house wearing her favorite blouse. I forgive myself. I forgive myself for making her a specimen that would help me investigate my own nature. I forgive myself for breaking her only to find inspiration for my next piece. She died in my arms, and because of me, she vowed to never love again. I forgive myself for loving her out of recognition. I forgive myself for killing her. The next poem I titled, They Say I Drank to Drown the Pain. They say I drank to drown the pain, but the pain learned to swim. So I thought I'd smoke to suffocate the pain, but the pain was my lips, slowly kissing the toxic air from a joint so bad, who cares? Overthinking kills, but silence was a killer too. Because all I could hear in my moments of slumber was my mind saying, believing that loving someone will make you feel better is a lie. So I set my purple haze ablaze and watched as the smoke leaves my body. Slowly, I thank God that I'm not yet hooked up on cocaine, and again I choke. And a cough snaps me out of my silent reverie. And almost immediately, I'm daydreaming, imagining what life could have been like if we never crossed paths. I pray for this heart to be unbroken. But without you, all I'm going to be is incomplete. The next piece I titled Failure. Typical, isn't it? How we don't write poems like this in times of bliss. How we choose to give in to our lust when the core of our faith begins to rust and turns to dust, blown away by a gust disguised as the trust God placed in us. Because no father wants to see their child bleed. That's why my demons I choose to feed, because they don't allow blood to leave my body red. I make sure they are fed because they are the iodine that turns my red bleed into blue ink, stained into an innocent white canvas into lyrics without the melody. Heavily I sigh as the sunshine I marked as a bright smile turns into an eclipse. Clips of my past played the role of the moon as they covered up your smile, not showing any trace of leaving anytime soon. I failed. Fell into a deep dungeon, but I wasn't bailed out. Fell so deep that not even a hound's snout could sniff me out. I failed. Swallowed my voice so nobody can hear my ail. Poetry used to be a window that helped me escape. Now it's just a wound waiting for me to come and soothe it with pain. I failed. To look you in the eye and sing to you my cry because I thought some secrets must be taken to the grave. Even though I love you, I wasn't brave enough to say I failed. Now, the next and final piece, I titled it, The Words I Never Said. The words I never said. Funny, this is the only poem that took real blood to write. The only poem that took real emotions to recite. The only poem that took real demons to translate because no one relates. No offense, but yellow snakes. I insulted you for the sake of a rhyme. She left me just because I took my time. I loved her. That was my only crime, and I'm paying for it because here I am doing the time. She taught me not to reveal everything at once, and when I didn't, I was just wasting time, time, time. The essence of this poem stems around time, the very thing she took from me and said, relax, it's just a fling. I used to sweat every time we'd flirt, but she didn't say, don't catch, you'll get hurt. Now here I am, loving her in silence, scared to speak out because that will ruin the little friendship we have left. The words I never said. Every day they shoot me dead.